tell every driver that I've ever worked with that, is asking me advice. Number one thing, before you sign up on a load, do your homework. Know where you're going, know how you're going to get out of the place you're going to when you deliver, and where you're going to next. And you will find that you will save yourself a lot of headaches down the road.
Welcome to Six Figure Trucker, the podcast where we share advice on how to be successful in trucking and have fun while doing so. We'll share stories, news, and advice on how to earn six figures in trucking, and we'll speak to guys and gals that are already doing so. Let's get to the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Six Figure Trucker, brought to you by Norton Transport. And each and every one of you, if you join us each week, you know this is a format, this is a space where we elevate and celebrate the drivers of America, particularly those of Norton Transport. Obviously, they make our company successful, and we just want to pay tribute to them and just lift them up in this space, and that's what we're doing. And we have a very special guest who is with us this evening, Mark Nichols. Mark, how are you?
Good, John. I'm good. In Sacramento, California. I'm up in a fire tower right now watching, make sure there's no fire started.
I got you. What part of California again were you saying you were in?
Sacramento.
Okay, you're in Sacramento. What's it like there right now? What's the weather?
About 60 degrees, sunny, wind calm, so no fires. So I guess everything's good.
Those have been devastating, man.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be down there. And there was actually, I think there was a load on the load board going down that way, and I'm like, no, I think I'll stay out of there for a while until they figure out what they're going to do.
Yeah, I don't blame you for that. Now, we were talking earlier before we started, got on the podcast here. You have your own podcast.
Yeah, I started my own podcast. I used to be one of my many jobs. I used to be a newspaper reporter. Once I got out of the Gulf War, I decided to go ahead and get out of the Army when it came time. I wasn't going to re-up, so I applied for a newspaper job as a reporter at a small town in Tennessee called Lawrenceburg, and I worked for the Lawrence County Advocate down there. I think I worked there for about 4 to 5 years, something like that, and I worked as a newspaper journalist, and so I learned how to write, learned how to put together a newspaper, and of course I would put the newspaper together with my editor, Nancy Brewer, which Nancy Brewer is probably one of the best bosses I ever had. She taught me a lot, was very patient with me, was always a bad speller, and she worked with me to get me up to speed on spelling. Words like a lot always gave me a lot of trouble. I couldn't remember which way they were supposed to be spelled.
Yeah, I got you.
So anyway, I developed that skill of being able to write, gather news, put together a paper. While I was serving in that position, I got a chance a couple times with a local radio station, which was right across the street. Anytime they held political debates and stuff, they would always ask me to be on the panel of questioners during debates. So I got a chance to do a little bit of public speaking and feel comfortable in front of a mic, speaking in front of people. I went from that job to everything else, and that job was really a job that transitioned me into being able to do more public related jobs, sales jobs, and things like that. So
gotcha.
It was a good learning experience.
Well, you and I, as we were talking about, we can certainly relate because before I got into my position now as an account manager with Norton Transport, I was a journalist as well. Worked for 31 years in the broadcasting business, and you and I both know in journalism, which a lot of people don't realize this. They think it's a glamour job, but if you like working long hours, weekends, and no pay or very little pay, go ahead and get into journalism.
Yeah, you get your name in the paper. Your name is right underneath the headline of the paper. It says by Mark Nichols. But other than that, it's like you said, it's low pay, a lot of work.
But the other side of it, I mean, not to be pessimistic about it, but the other side of it, you get to see a lot of things, experience a lot of things, and understand a little bit more about humanity.
Yeah, you did, and you come across some good stories every once in a while too. I mean. The beat that I covered was the courthouse and the city administration building, so I covered a lot of crime stories. Somebody would break it. I had a daily meeting on Monday through Friday basis with the sheriff, me and the other reporters, and he would, basically tell us what bad things people did the day before, and he'd give us some stuff to write about. And it's a daily grind covering all of that. But sometimes I would get out and tell just personal interest stories, and I'd come across some good stuff every now and then. So it's a good job. I don't think you're not going to raise the family on it or anything else, but it will give you some experience that will lead you to a better job somewhere down the road.
Sure.
Which basically led me to my podcast. When right before COVID, I was at the house and wasn't driving much, and I said, I'm going to do something. And I was watching a lot of podcasts on YouTube and things like that. And I was just watching, these shows, and I'm like, well, I could do that. And so I bought the equipment, had Amazon deliver package at the house, and basically set up a studio in the second bedroom of my townhome, and just basically during COVID, learn how to put together a podcast and interview people. I already knew how to do that, so it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. Because the transition from a newspaper to a podcast pretty easy.
Yeah, it's called the Mark Nichols Podcast, and that's Nichols, Nichols.
Yeah, I also have that podcast is available on Spotify and Apple Podcast, and I think it's on Google Podcast too. I mean, it's part of once you're on one podcast, you're on everything.
Oh,
because it all goes to kind of a central database, and all the other podcasts collect from it. So, but I also have a Substack page too, where I do some writing as well.
Gotcha. Now, on your podcast, do you talk about your profession as a Driveaway truck driver?
I've mentioned it during interviews a little bit, but my podcast really focused on local people there in the Lawrence County area, because we had two newspapers there, but one of them I used to work for was Lawrence County Advocate, but the readership has fallen off so bad on those papers that they're just about out of business and everything, and that's not anything abnormal, because that's happened across the United States with newspapers.
Mm-hmm.
So what I wanted to do with the podcast was interview local people that probably would not appear in the paper. Because, when you have a local newspaper, you're usually understaffed. You got one, maybe two reporters, and they can't cover everything.
Right.
And a lot of times the things they cover is pretty much fit to them. They're just retyping stuff in is basically what they're doing. They might have a time to get out and drive their car somewhere and make an interview or something, but usually the reporter, maybe the editor as well, and maybe the layout person, and doing everything, doing 3 or 4 different jobs, maybe, but doing some ads, creating some ads. So they can't cover anything other than just a little bit of a news, and it's usually government related, something going on at the courthouse or something. Now, so I wanted with my podcast to get into interview local people, talking about things that doesn't get talked about in the paper.
I gotcha. Sounds like you got a pretty good niche there. How often does your podcast air? Does it come on every week, or is it spontaneous, or how often does it come out?
It was, I tried to put out something about every 2 to 3 weeks. And the problem I run into is, at that time was all the technology was kind of new in podcasting. Really, if you didn't have, and this was during COVID, so you really couldn't bring someone into an office or something and interview them, because everybody was locked down.
Right.
So you had to do it over the phone like we're doing now. And a lot of times you would have a person call into your podcast, and they're out in Lawrence County in the rural area in the country, so to speak, and their cell service is not very good. Mm-hmm. So, you're trying to do an interview and their cell phone is popping and going in and out, and that was a challenge right there, is getting the technology to work right.
Calls dropping and you can't understand. Yeah. Yeah, that would be tough. Certainly.
And I'll tell you, a lot of people really think they can get on a mic because they're used to talking and everything. But once it gets down, and like I remember interviewing the lady that's over the women's shelter there, battered women's shelter, mm-hmm. and I was doing an interview with her, and it was just just her saying what she has said in other interviews on others. people's podcasts and, nothing new. And I was trying to pull out information from her, trying to pull out something that was a little bit different. And, some people just can't get that intimate on a phone conversation and an interview where they can't get off the script, so to speak.
Right.
And that was always tough on the podcast, is getting people that I had known to get more
personal
into personal stuff,
Yeah.
And
that's the key.
challenge of a podcast.
That's the key, is pulling that information out of people. I mean, you have to learn. To me, I mean, as a journalist myself, one of the key skills in interviewing is the simply listening.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to ask you a little bit on 7 years with Norton Transport. Obviously, on the road, Class A driver. You've probably, I'm guessing, seen all of the country.
Many times. Over and over and over.
Is there any part that really takes your breath away or has made a memory for you?
There's some towns like if you go into, let's say you go into Ohio and that area where I think it's the Ohio River, but you'll see some towns like along that river that been there forever, and I can remember some places and some towns where the downtown is an old school downtown with a lot of older architecture, a lot of what I would call the craftsman homes, or even some Sears and Roebuck homes and everything. And the downtown buildings have a lot of deep, detailed exteriors on the crown and everything else, where you can tell the buildings have not been demolished and metal buildings put up in their place. These are buildings that have been there since the 20s, not 1920s or 1930s, and they've been well taken care of and painted, and they've been occupied, they've been used, so obviously they've been kept up. And those are some of the really coolest towns you'll ever go through. And it's almost like going back in time to where, this was back in the days of something I guess you would see on a Hallmark card from 1930s or something.
I gotcha.
So
just a nice Americana there.
And I just finished a trip up delivering some trucks over from Buffalo over to the New Hampshire, Vermont area. And I got a chance to go through like the Green Mountain area over there. And you've got a lot of small towns through there that haven't not really been touched. And, they are tourist towns, but they have not been overdeveloped with stuff. You still got a lot of the charm and the downtown area and the little shops and everything. I like that stuff to me because most places you go to in the United States, it's strip malls. It's same buildings, same stores, same metal buildings,
right.
Same overdevelopment.
Yeah, it's a lot more intriguing to go to places you've described, hamlets, if you will, villages, kind of iconic places from days gone by.
I mean, and me personally, I like places that have good architecture, and not just a square building put up or something, and it's a lot of places, they're tearing down the architecture and just putting up, commercial style buildings that have nothing interesting to look at. So, and plus, you go to some of those old Rust Belt towns and you'll see some churches there that are, that just were magnificent built churches that were, built 100 years ago or maybe 150 years ago. And, and I just, I'm driving down the interstate and I see these churches and I'm like, boy, I really would like to take this truck I'm driving and go to that church and just sit there and stare at the architecture for a little bit. But you can't, because you just got to keep driving. You got, but I'm always, that always catches my eyes when I'm running around the country.
What kind of truck are you in right now?
I just delivered a Penske box truck today out of Kent, Washington, and brought it down to Sacramento. Those are just a transfer truck.
And you had a bigger truck before that one leading you to the greater Kent area, is that right?
Yeah, the one I delivered before that was a dump truck, a used dump truck out of Liberty Valley, or Liberty Lake out of Spokane.
Yeah, Liberty
and I took
Lake.
it over to.
Yeah, that's one of my accounts. That's what I know it was. I think they call that a super dump. It's a big truck, wasn't it?
Yeah, it had all kinds of attachments on it. It was a weird one though too, because they had two of them there. The the sales agent in Sumner, Washington, bought the trucks out of Idaho, and I guess they took them there to Liberty Lake to have the inspection done on them. And he was using us to get the 2 trucks to his location.
Mm-hmm.
And I got there one day, picked up the first one that he wanted. And I said, I can't leave out right now because I'm low on hours. So I took a hotel break that night, and I went back the next morning to actually get the truck and start driving it. And when I was eating breakfast that morning, and Rachel called me, my dispatcher, and said, no, they don't want that truck. They want the other one. And
I'm
so
very
I said,
well
okay,
aware of that, because the night before, which you going to get the motel or the hotel for the night, that was a blessing in disguise, because I got the call that night before and switched the VINs knowing that you were going to be taking a set of keys and exchanging them for another one. But from what I understand, they were pretty much the same type truck.
Yep. And I don't know if that gave you the information, but the reason why all of that happened is while those 2 trucks were at Liberty Lake being inspected, one of the sales guys there sold one of the trucks.
I did hear about that. I did.
Yeah, he sold it out from underneath the guy in Sumner.
Yeah,
which made him very mad.
Yeah, he was not real pleased when I talked to him. That's a funny story, though. I mean,
he was not pleased when I talked to him on the other end either.
Yeah, it's trucking's an interesting business, as we all know.
Yeah, it's but I'm like, yeah, lucky like you said, I'm lucky I didn't take off the night that day, because that whole thing would have been a disaster. I'd probably been driving the truck back to Liberty Lake.
Yeah, you'd probably still be in Washington and not in California. But wanted to talk about, you've had some interesting professions, obviously being a journalist, being a trucker on the open road as a drive-by trucker, and you've done some other things that are very intriguing. And the one that caught my eye the most when we were talking before we got on the show, you were a ballroom dance instructor?
Yes, I was. That's probably I would say that's one of the longest, probably the longest job I had.
How does one fall into that? How do you become a ballroom dance instructor?
When I was a newspaper reporter in Lawrenceburg, Tennessee, working for the Advocate, I rented a Fred Astaire movie. Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers in Top Hat. Mm-hmm. Because I've always liked dancing. So I just, on a whim, I rented that movie, saw it on the shelf, and I rented it, took it home and watched it. And Fred Astaire's choreography, that he did in that movie. It was an RKO picture from 1932, I think it was. During those pictures where Fred Astaire was dancing, he choreographed the routines along with his assistant choreographer, Hermes Penn, which I think Hermes Penn was, I want to say he was from Tennessee, but I'm not sure. But anyway, that was his assistant choreographer. And anything Fred Astaire danced in any movie, those 2 guys choreographed it. Fred Astaire would do his part, and Hermes would dance the woman's part. And that's how they worked out the routine. And then Fred Astaire's leading lady would come in a few months later with the routines already worked out, and they would dance them. So all of that kind of intrigued me, and I loved the dancing part. And I did a little bit of dancing in high school. I was basically I guess you might say a break dancer in high school.
Okay.
So I wasn't, like I said, I was never afraid to get up on the stage and do something, perform or say a speech. It's just totally one of my few gifts in life. So I was watching those movies, and I just got the idea one day, typing out a story, I'm going to take some ballroom dance lessons. So I looked up the nearest ballroom dance studio, Fred Astaire's, and it was in Nashville, which from Lawrenceburg is only about a 70-mile ride. So it's about an hour and a half. Mm-hmm. So I went up there and I started taking lessons. And the guy that owned the studio up there, his name is Ben Ernest. You can Google him. Him and his partner, Shalene Archer, were 5-time United States smooth dance champions. I mean, they were in the movie Shall We Dance? One of the couples they were competing on the floor. Very, very well known in America if you're in the ballroom dance world.
Extremely talented too, it sounds like.
Yeah, they worked hard on the hitching. I mean, I've watched them. I watched them in their net practice sessions. I mean, it's, they deserve anything they've got. So I went up there, was taking dance lessons, and I saw Ben on this. I'm like, man, he looks really cool. He can dance. He knows, he's just really cool looking guy. I want to do this. I want to quit writing stories and put together newspapers, and I want to become a dance instructor. I think I would be good at it. He says, well, I don't have any openings right now, but let me call a friend of mine at the Fred Astaire School in Memphis, Tennessee, and see if he would take you on, and I'll put in a good word for you, and you can go get into his teacher school, because you got to go, when you go into Fred Astaire School, you got to go through a teacher school, basically, to learn how to teach the first six lessons. Okay. And so Tom said, yeah, bring him on down. I'll take a look at him. And I drove from Lawrenceburg over to Memphis and set for an interview. And he liked me. He said I was clean cut, I could speak well, carry myself well, and I was 6'2". So, yeah, he would take a chance on me. So he put me in teacher school, which lasted about a month. And about the third week of teacher school, he comes into the practice room where we were doing our schooling. And he said, Nichols, and he had a jacket, because at his school you had to wear a shirt, tie, and a coat. You had to look professional. You just couldn't walk out there in a pair of shorts. And he said, Nichols, and he was holding a coat, a blue blazer, that on the right sleeve that was torn, where it was kind of threadbare a little bit. This blue blazer was his from about 10 years prior.
Okay.
And he said, Nichols, he handed me the jacket. He said, I need you to teach in 1 hour.
You were kind of thrown into the fire there.
He said, yeah, I've got a student coming in. Her name was Marsha Mitchell. Never heard of this day. And she was a school teacher. And she came in, and that was my first student. And I taught her the first lesson. And I taught her for the 4 or 5 years I was at that school. So
how many
years? First student I ever got was probably my longest lasting student.
How many years were you an instructor?
At that school, I was an instructor for about 4 to 5 years, and then I moved to Nashville, and I worked for Ben and Shalene at that school up there for about the same time period. And then I had my own school down in Florence, Alabama, and I've always kept contact with Ben and Shalene. If I wanted to go teach, if they had a studio today, I could teach for them if I wanted to. I just had to call them up and say, you got a spot for me, and I could, order me a pair of ballroom dance shoes and take off and go.
Gotcha.
Because in a ballroom dance world, you learn to teach, you learn to dance, but one thing you do learn to do is sell lessons, because if you don't sell a lessons in a ballroom dance studio, you can't pay the rent.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
So, and you're selling. You learn to sell. You learn to make a presentation in front of somebody you've never met, because selling a ballroom dance lesson is very difficult, because you can't see it, you can't touch it, you can't smell it, you can't put it on. You can't do. It's an invisible item you're trying to sell. You're trying to sell them the future. You're trying to sell somebody, hey, take these lessons, and this is what you're going to look like in the future. That's a very difficult sale to make.
You're selling an ideal, a dream, I guess, sort of a...
Yeah, you're selling a dream. You're selling something futuristic that they can't put their hands on and look and smell it and see it. So I've always said ballroom dance instructors are the best salesmen out there, because they have the hardest sell. Somebody selling a car, you can get in the car, you can fill the interior, you fill the steering wheel, you drive it around the block, and you get out and look at it. That's an easy sell.
Mm-hmm.
Selling something you can't see is tough, but
you got to be creative.
You do. And also, you're a young guy, 20 years old, and a lot of times the students you have are 40, 50, 60. Now, there are young students too, but, you've got a big difference of age range there of women that you have to, in just a short amount of time, make a connection with, teach them enough to where they can move around the floor. And you have to say, hey, this is what we've done in these amount of lessons, this is what we could do in this amount of lessons. So you try to sell lessons and you try to keep them in the studio long enough where you can really teach them how to dance.
Mm-hmm. Now,
And it's tough.
you were telling me earlier too. You fell into a position with Dwight Yoakam. How did that happen?
Yeah. When I was teaching in Nashville with Ben and Shalene, there was, you have a teacher's room in any studio where the teachers are, they gather in there, they're calling the students, and, it's kind of like a communal office for just the teachers.
I got you.
And we were in there, me and one male teacher and a female teacher, and the male teacher's name was Danny. And he had said something to me like he was going to try out for some sort of a show or something that he was going to do. And I said, and I just made the comment, hey, I should do that too. He said, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that. Like, he was better than me. And I was driving home that day and I heard on the radio that they had open auditions at the Opryland, not at the hotel, but there's another place around the Opryland Hotel at the time. And they were having open auditions for Dwight Yoakam performance coming up to be on the CMA Awards. So I answered the call, called them up, gave my name, put me on the list. I'll go in and try out. Went there, I think it was on a Wednesday, and Dwight, of course, was not there, but his choreographer. If you remember when he came out with a song, Crazy Little Thing Called Love, that was shortly after there was the swing dance craze was very popular back in I think it was the late 90s or something, in that time frame. There was a clothing company, what was that, who came out with a commercial, or it was a swing dance commercial. They sold jeans. There was a store in all the malls that sold jeans. I can't think of the name of that store, but they had a commercial on television where they had their people in the commercial were dancing in their jeans, and they were playing an old Louis Prima song. It was a swing dance song. So that kind of set off the swing dance craze back in that day.
Right.
After that, Dwight Yoakam redid Crazy Little Thing Called Love, which is the beat of that song is to a swing beat. It's a song that you can swing dance to. So he did his video at the time, and he had people kind of doing what that commercial was doing, except they had his take on it. They were out there with the cowboy hats and stuff like that. So when the CMA Awards came on, they wanted him to come on the CMA Awards and recreate his video on stage.
Gotcha.
So that's what we were there for, is to basically kind of rejigger that routine where it can be on stage. And not only were we dancing on the stage, behind us, we were dancing on video. So they're like, if we were dancing to the right on the video screen behind us, on stage, we were dancing to the left. So both routines, one on stage live, one behind us on the video screen, we were dancing kind of contra to one another.
I got you. So
visually it was a cool effect.
I was just going to ask, what was that experience like?
Well, hard work. When you got there to the auditions, they basically took everybody in groups of 10 to 15 dancers apiece. They were going to pick, I think they picked like 12 girls, 12 guys. I think it was what they picked. They wound up coming with. And they would take you in big groups, and his choreographer would show you the routine. Then you have to go out into the hallway while they were showing the other groups the routine. And they only showed you the routine once or twice. And you had to go back out in the hallway and learn the routine based off your memory.
Okay. All right. Well, that's true.
You didn't get much chance. You saw the routine once or twice, and then you had to go out in the hallway.
You had to commit it to memory.
Everybody, yeah, you had to, it was professional dancing. You had to know your stuff. But a lot of the people out in the hallway were trying to remember what the routine. Everybody was talking. What are we supposed to do here? What are we supposed to do there? And me, might not have been the best dancer there, but what did come in handy for me is I was an instructor. And I could watch a routine and I could divide it up into sections very quickly and basically categorize those sections and learn them very quickly, simply because I was an instructor. This is how I taught my students. I would divide stuff into sections, and we'll do this section, this section, this section, and we'll put it together. It was a very systematical way of learning routines that I was taught how to do as an instructor. The other people didn't have that advantage, even though they were technically better dancers than me.
Gotcha. You're listening to Mark Nichols here on the Six Figure Trucker, brought to you by Norton Transport. Mark is sharing with us much of his fascinating life, some of his experiences from a backup dancer for Dwight Yoakam to a ballroom dance instructor to a journalist and, of course, a Driveaway truck driver. Mark, we've enjoyed talking all these things with you, so much so that we want to visit with you next week again, because if you were listening earlier, Mark made mention that he was a Gulf War veteran. We're going to look down, we're going to drill down on that next week, talk about his experiences overseas, and also a little bit more about his experience as a driver. Mark, as we wrap up week one here, what else can you leave with us about life on the road as far as maybe a guidepost per se if somebody's considering Driveaway?
If you're considering Driveaway, one thing you have to learn, and it's the first thing you have to learn, before you do a load, sign up on a load, do your homework first. Know where you're going, know how you're going to get out of the place you're going to when you deliver, and where you're going to next. Make sure you know if there's transportation out of that place you're going to. So I tell every driver that I've ever worked with that, is asking me advice. Number one thing, before you sign up on a load, do your homework, and you will find that you will save yourself a lot of headaches down the road.
Gotcha. Great advice from Mark Nichols here on the Six Figure Trucker, brought to you by Norton Transport. Mark has a good baseline to give good advice on Driveaway Trucking. He's been with us for 7 years. He is an experienced driver behind the wheel there, and he's also, as you will hear next week, experienced overseas as a veteran. Mark, thank you very, very much for joining us. We look forward to hearing from you next week as well.
Thank you, John.
Six Figure Trucker is brought to you by Norton Transport. Norton Transport is a drive-away trucking company that customers can rely on. It offers excellent independent contract driving opportunities to professional, courteous, and qualified drivers that can provide the kind of service we deliver. If you're interested in learning more about Norton or just want to subscribe to the show, check out 6-figuretrucker.com. That's 6-figuretrucker.com.